Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Breaking Yarn podcast. My name is Michaeli. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this is my podcast where I talk about my knitting, my crocheting, and my yarn dyeing. You can find me online at breakingyarn.com or anywhere on social media at Breaking Yarn. Today I have 3 finished objects and only 1 WIP. And actually, I don't even have any acquisitions. Wow. Okay, so this might be a quick podcast, but let's just jump right into it. Last episode, I was working on this to get it done for the KAL. This is my dumpling bag. I knit this for the knit along that Pearl Soho did. It goes like this, like that. And you can probably knit walk with this bag pretty easy. A little hard to show you that. But this is a pattern. It's on the Pearl Soho website for free. And it's designed by Handmade by Jean. And it's just a cute little project bag. Just like that, with 2 little handles. One is longer than the other. I believe that's the dumpling style. And then the big one fits into the little one like that. So it probably looks a little better when there's yarn in it. But for the yarn, I used this Blackbird linen. It is from Pearl Soho, and it's 100% French linen. And this color is called Purple Plum. And so I finished that just in time for the KAL to end. I haven't heard that I've won anything, so I'm gonna guess that I haven't won anything, but it was still fun to participate in that KAL and knit this project bag. It turned out really cute. You can see where I Kitchenered a little bit on the straps. So I don't know if I messed that up or maybe my tension was a little bit different or something in that spot, but it's still cute. I like it. I have another skein of that Blackbird fiber, or Blackbird linen, excuse me, in this other tealy color. It's literally called, oh, it's called Galapagos Teal. And I've heard from a lot of people, so now I know that linen is from the flax plant. So it's a plant-based fiber, not an animal fiber. And now I know what it is. I still don't know what a flax plant looks like. I should look that up. But they were all saying that linen will get softer as you wash it and as you wear it. So like I had mentioned that I didn't think I would want to wear a top made out of this. But everyone was saying that it gets very soft when you wash it a lot. And I did block this. This is blocked. And I will say it is a little bit softer than like when I was knitting it, for example. But maybe you have to wash it a lot. I'm not sure. But I probably won't wash the project bag that much, right? Because it probably won't need it. But that's my finished object number 1, my little dumpling bag for the Pearl Soho KAL. And I love how it turned out. It's super cute. Maybe I'll knit the other one someday soon. Maybe. I also finished my other Walter White socks design sock. This one I made some alterations on, but this is supposed to represent the double helix for Walter White. And it's a nod to his chemistry teacher days when he was a high school chemistry teacher, before he became a drug lord. So that's what that is. A double helix. And it has a slip stitch heel flap, heel turn and gusset, and then just a rounded toe. And I realized when I knit these ones, I think when I knit my original samples, so you can see how the cable kind of continues into the toe area a little bit more. And I think it's because I actually did stop at a different spot. So on this one, you can see it a little bit. So you can see it kind of continue the cable up a little bit, but it's not as distinct as this one. And I think it's just because I accidentally stopped my knitting a little bit early on this one. I thought I had just done like a straight full repeat, but it looks like when I looked back at it, it looks like I may have done a few rounds past the beginning of the next repeat. So it wasn't like exact. And these ones, ironically, they fit me better lengthwise, but not around-wise. And these ones fit me better around-wise. God. Oh God. Okay. They fit me better around better. Anyways, so I made some adjustments and modifications to this pattern. Now the issue is that my feet are really swollen because I am over 7 months pregnant, and it's the middle of the summer. It's very hot, so my feet are swollen, and I'm gonna have Lisa try all these socks on and see what she thinks. But I am knitting up the pattern. I'm working on that so that I can get it tech edited. And then my goal is to get it into testing at least before the baby comes. So in the next few weeks, I hope to have the pattern completely finished and ready for testers. So that's my goal. This pink is the Holly White colorway. She's the little baby in the show, Walter White's daughter. So here's the Walter White colorway. And then here's the Holly White colorway. And I just knit one sock. I really just needed to see if the modifications that I made to make it a little bit wider worked, and I think it did. It's just my own circumstances at this point. But if you want to test any of my patterns that come out, I would recommend joining my email subscribe list through my website. You can go to breakingyarn.com, and there should be a pop-up, or all the way at the bottom of the page there will be a way to sign up for the newsletter. But I always give my email subscribers first dibs on pattern testing, and so far I've always gotten more than enough responses for pattern testing through those means, so I haven't had to reach out to social media at all to get like other people maybe who don't know so much about me. So if you want to test any of these patterns that I come out with, then that's your best bet of being able to do that, is just to answer that call. So that's my finished object number 2. And now my favorite project. Oh my gosh. I finished, this is my 3rd finished object, and I finished my baby sweater. Isn't that so cute? Look at the shawl collar. This is so cute. It like, you can fold it up too to see it better. Like, so cute. I am obsessed with this sweater. So this is a pattern, I got it on Etsy. I'll link it in the description box down below. It's probably a little hard to find. It's just called 1968, but of course that can't be the description on Etsy, because how would anyone ever find that? So I'll link it down below in case you're interested in it. But it has this really beautiful bumpy texture on all the pieces. It's knit flat. So you knit the back panel, then the front panel, then the 2 arms, and then you knit the shawl collar all separate, and then you seam them all together. I can show you the inside. And the instructions, I will say, for this pattern, for the seaming and like how to put it together, was very bad. Everything else seemed fine, like I understood what I was supposed to do, but it's just for the sewing I don't know if you can see it. I just did like a traditional like sewing where I went back and forth along the two edges, and then some pieces I went back and did like almost like a whip stitch around it too, just to make sure that it was like really secure. So they're double seamed. So I did it once where I was just like, I don't want to say knitting, like, but like sewing like this. I don't know what that's called. And then I did like the whip stitch where you go like around the edges. And that seemed to work pretty well for getting it all put together. I did have a little bit of issue with getting the shawl collar in the correct spot with the seams on the right edges, with the right side facing out, because it was a little tricky getting it to go into the right spot and to not be able to see the seams, but then also have the right side facing out, especially when it's like folded down too. But I was able to do it, and it wasn't that bad. I did rip it once. I had started sewing it, and then I was like, I don't think this is right. And then I ripped it once and did it again. So that's that. This is it's the 6 month size, maybe it's 6 to 9 months. I don't remember. I can put it down on the screen here, but I think it's 6 to 9 months size. And I did that because, one, I think he's going to be a big baby. That's what everyone is telling me. He's measuring big, he's measuring ahead of schedule, he's measuring whatever, more pounds than he should be. And then two, he's due in September, but it's not going to be cold in September. So I didn't want to make like a newborn sweater that might not fit him until later. Well, I just didn't want to make him a newborn sweater that he'd have to wear in September because it's still hot. So I made him a larger one in hopes that, I think this is the second size that they offered. I think it's 6 to 9 months, but I wanted it to be a little bit larger so that he can wear it this winter. But I think it's so cute. It turned out adorable. I held Breaking Blue double. I do have, oh yes, I do have a little bit left. I want to shout out Evelyn from last episode. She commented a very useful tip, and I'm so glad she did because she's a genius. So let me tell you about that, because I was so close. I held them double so that it'd be DK, and I used 2 skeins for the majority of this, okay? I only ran out of yarn like halfway through the shawl collar, and I was like, oh no, like I'm not gonna have enough to like do it all. And I was just gonna wind up 2 skeins of yarn to hold them double again to do it. And she was like, why don't you just wind up 1 and then center pull and, ooh, almost dropped it, and outer pull at the same time. And it worked like a charm. So obviously when you're doing center pull, you wanna make sure your yarn is wound nicely, that you didn't have any like skips when you're winding it, that it didn't like skip and go down at all, but it all stays on the ball. So I made sure that it was wound very nicely, and that worked like a charm. Like pulling from the center and the outside at the same time worked perfectly. I didn't even have to use that much of this. So I just wanted to shout out Evelyn. Thank you so much for mentioning that. I would have wound both yarns. I would have wound both yarns, and then I would have double as much left over afterwards. So I appreciate that tip because it worked perfectly. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm trying to think. It is a paid for pattern. It's on Etsy. I think I mentioned that, but it was a very cheap pattern. It was less than $2, I believe. And the pattern also comes with a hat pattern and a blanket pattern. So if you want to make like a matching set or something like that, you definitely can. It's all in one pattern. So that's kind of nice. And I really did love knitting this texture here. It's a four stitch repeat to make this beautiful bumpy texture of goodness. And I love it so much. And I can't wait for baby boy to wear it. And yeah, that'll just be really sweet. Okay, so my last thing that I have is my WIP. This is my only WIP at the moment. I do not have any other WIPs going. And so I figured I did want to start, oh, maybe I did have one acquisition, but it was a pattern. I did, okay, so I did, let me just tell you about this card, about this WIP, and then I'll tell you about what I bought. All right, so it's been a minute since you've seen this. This is my Stria cardigan. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry of Drea Ray Nets, and it's a fisherman's rib cardigan. And I used my 2022 Leap of Faith Yarns Advent for the stripes. So every stripe is a different day, and I did 24 days. So it's a little bit longer of a body than what the pattern calls for or suggests. And this gray that I'm using is called Coin Flip is Sacred. It is not yet released. I need to get my act together and release that colorway. Maybe even before the baby comes. We'll have to see if I can get my act together fast enough to make that happen. But it's just a beautiful silvery gray neutral. And then of course I'm using my minis for the contrasting stripes. And I started the sleeves. So I started the sleeves the other night, and I actually ended up ripping it and starting it again. So you can see I've only done 2 stripes on the sleeve, so it's slow going a little bit. And it's different doing fisherman's rib in the round compared to doing fisherman's rib flat. So it is a little bit different. Here's a lot more purling, but I don't mind purling actually, so it's totally fine. But that's where I am. I do still have my waste yarn in, and I left it in there for a few reasons. Like, one, I already had to rip back because I had made a mistake. So I just ripped my needles, ripped the contrast color out that I did, and then re-picked up everything, re-attached the yarn, like did all that. So it's nice if you want to leave your waste yarn in, until you know that you're not going to need to go back anymore. So I'll probably wait until I'm like halfway through the sleeve to pull it out, or I'll just wait until the very end. I mean, there's really no difference between pulling it out now or pulling it out at the end of my sleeve. But I think you should just leave it in there until you know for sure that you aren't going to need it anymore. So yeah, and I just have it on the inside, and it really won't be a big deal to pull that out at all later. And the other reason is, like, the pattern wants you to knit for so many inches before you start doing decreases. And how will I know exactly how far I've knit on the sleeve? Besides, I guess you would know from this. I guess you'd know from that little bit right here how much you've knit, so you can keep track of when to start doing your decreases. But yeah, so those are a few reasons why I like to keep my waste yarn in the sleeves until I know that I'm not going to need to rip it anymore. So that's my only WIP. I will work on this now that I have them picked up. I feel like for me, like, getting the sleeves on the needles is always like the most daunting part, and then once you are into knitting the sleeve and you like are in the rhythm of it, it's easy and you can just go for it kind of more mindlessly. But it's just getting to that point where you're like, okay, let me sit down and like figure out how to get these on the needles, because it always gets a little tricky when you're picking up underarm, at least for me, right? Underarm stitches and stuff like that. And I am using Magic Loop for that on my ChiaoGoo needles. I'm feeling more and more comfortable with magic loop recently. I'm not sure if it's just because I have been knitting my daughter's socks on magic loop or what is happening, but I'm feeling a little bit more confident in it and a little bit, it's less daunting to me, and I feel like I'm able to, one of the problems I used to have with magic loop is that I would get ladders along the side, and I learned that if you just kind of pinch the back cable with your front needle a little bit for the first like few stitches, then that's not an issue at all. But if you just let it like flare out and then you're knitting, when you're connecting the round every round, then it kind of creates more of a ladder. So if you just kind of pinch your cable, your back cable with your front needle a little bit for those first few stitches, no ladders at all. So I think a combination of doing that and just feeling more comfortable with it has made it a little bit easier for me to feel comfortable doing magic loop on other projects. So I just opted for magic loop on the sleeves of this sweater. And I'll link my ChiaoGoos down below, the ones that I like to use. I have the interchangeable set, and I would highly recommend that to anybody who's looking for an interchangeable set. I love ChiaoGoo, and I love that particular set because it's so versatile. You can basically knit any project you want on them, and maybe even multiple projects at once, and it not be an issue with extra cords or anything like that. Okay, so I did have one acquisition and I completely forgot about it. And then I remembered that I bought this because I wanted to start them, and then I was like, no, Michaeli, you need to do your Stria Cardigan sleeves. So I kind of forced myself to start the sleeves so that I didn't get too off into WIP land. Since I just finished a bunch of WIPs, it kind of feels good to just have one WIP going. But I do want to start some Halfsies socks. I can't remember who they are by. I'll put the information down here. But I did purchase this pattern, and I was thinking it would be fun to go through, excuse me, I like have the hiccups right now. I was thinking it would be fun to go through all of my like leftover sock yarn and pair up some like fun or unlikely matches. Like I think it would be really fun to do like the black and white stripes from zebra yarns with like a variegated, like I think that would be really fun. I have a lot of like really fun variegated colorways that I would love to like try again. This one's from Fuzzy Whatnots. So I might just like pair up some colorways and go from there. But I bought the fingering weight version of the pattern, not the DK version. Only because I don't have that many DK, I don't have that many DK leftover skeins. I just have more sock fingering leftover skeins. So I feel like it would be easier to do the fingering weight Halfsy socks instead of the DK ones. But I guess you could hold them double, and that would be like a marled look. But I just got the fingering weight pattern. So we'll start with that, and then we'll see how that goes. I think that's it for episode 53 of the Breaking Yarn podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day and week. We'll see you next time. Bye!